Welcome to this unique DeBacco University video because this is with a collaboration with Shane from MIGRO, where we'll be looking at the details of what PAR is, the definition of it, looking at some PAR maps, and also some light intensity related to plant production. We have the opportunity here to have Shane give us some insight on these various questions that many growers have that I hope you enjoy.
Hi guys, we're doing a collaboration video today. I'm Shane, the founder of MIGRO. That's MIGRO, the grow lighting channel available on YouTube and other social media channels. And I'm doing it today with Matt from DeBacco University.
Welcome everyone. This is Matthew DeBacco here from DeBacco University, here with Shane from MIGRO. This wonderful collaboration will hopefully provide you with a great insight into many of your lighting questions. Well, Shane, thank you for doing this collaboration. You know, with lighting, we hear a lot about growers and they're looking at things and they see these three letters, P-A-R, PAR. And they might be wondering, you know, what is this? How is it measured? And how does this relate to something when we're looking at artificial lighting?
Sure. So PAR stands for Photosynthetically Active Radiation. It's a bit of a mouthful, but what it means quite simply is the light that plants use for photosynthesis or growth. There is a broad electromagnetic radiation spectrum from the sun in terms of nature. We get all the way from X-rays up to microwaves. And in the middle there, aligned with the visual range of that radiation, plants will use from blue up to red. That's from 400 to 700 nanometers wavelength of light to photosynthesize. Now, when we're measuring PAR, we say that all those wavelengths are equal. So a unit of blue will grow as much as, for example, a unit of red. It's not quite as simple as that. There's a little bit of variability in it. But in simple terms, we measure each band of wavelength equally in terms of how it contributes to plant growth. There is evidence, of course, that if you go down into the UVA spectrum, so a little bit in terms of lower or shorter wavelength than blue, that also causes photosynthesis, but it is less efficient than within the strict PAR spectrum. And the same goes from far red, which is longer wavelength, to red. That's just getting out of the visible spectrum, but it does also contribute to plant growth.
Now, when we're looking at artificial lighting, you know, we see a lot of dimmer switches and, you know, we can make adjustments. So with PAR, understanding that it is this, you know, wavelengths of light that these plants are utilizing, wouldn't it be just maximizing it to 10, crank it as close as we can? Isn't more just better when trying to replicate the sun? So speak to the kind of the intensity of PAR and how it relates to plants.
Yeah, so when we're measuring PAR, we measure it in units called micromoles, and that's a count of the number of photons that are in the light being radiated. And if we take, for example, the sun at midday in mid-July, that would peak at about 2,000 micromoles, so quite a high level. When we are looking at indoor growers, most indoor growers growing cannabis would grow probably at around 800 micromoles, quite typical today. However, there is research showing that plants will, the rate of growth will increase if you increase that micromole level all the way up to about 1,500 micromoles. However, using a higher PAR intensity than that, and particularly over a long period of time, the plants do have a limitation as to how much they can absorb, and in particular over the length of the day.
Yeah, so it's good to mention that limitation. So we're trying to be as efficient with our lighting as possible, the electricity consumption, and really looking at final yield and, you know, plant production. So with that, a lot of growers, you know, when you look at a light, scroll down, hopefully you're finding like, you know, these PAR maps. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of, you know, variation there. Can you just explain a little bit what growers are looking at when they take a look at a PAR map of a light?
Yeah, so again, when we're measuring PAR, we're measuring micromoles per meter square per second. We measure them using a special sensor called a quantum sensor. And in order to determine the effectiveness of a lighting system, we look at how the power intensity, that is the power level, right across a plant canopy or a growing area. And we do so by measuring the power intensity across that grow area, usually in a grid. A grid, the more squares in that grid or the more measurements in that grid, the better, because we get a higher resolution. And that enables us to visually see the power intensity right across the grow area. It can be represented sometimes as a heat map, where you'd have, sort of going from cool to hot, where the power intensity raises from relatively low to relatively high, or it may just be shown in terms of numbers. It's a very, very useful visual aid to understanding the effectiveness of a lighting system and how well it is going to, how high the power intensity is going to be underneath that fixture in your grow tent setup, for example, and also the quality of the distribution, so how uniform it is across that plant canopy.
And I agree with that. Uniformity is important, because it's a lot of quotes might be for the highest intensity, but you want to see how that's going to spread out over your grow tent. And also keep in mind the distance between that and your plants can also affect that. So understanding those power maps, looking how it compares to your growing operation, will allow you to make a quality choice on the lighting you choose to purchase.
And there's one thing I would add to that, which is in terms of hanging height of the fixture, to get the most power intensity down onto the grow, generally you want to have the fixture as low as possible, as close to the plant canopy as possible. However, it is a compromise, because if you have it too low, you'll get very high power intensity directly under the fixture, but it won't spread out to the edges. So when you're looking at a power map, it's usually a compromise of hanging the fixture as low as possible, but not too low that you get so that you get an even and uniform spread over the target area.
Thank you very much, Shane, for this kind of look at everything. So when people go through and look at these figures, look at these maps, they can apply it to their situation and make an informed choice on their decision.